Welcome everyone to our first Bookaccino Live of 2024. It's like we've been doing so much this last week. We actually were joking around, as I said the other day, I feel like it's February already. Let's go back a little bit in history and talk about your top November, December picks from November's presentation. Remember November? It feels like a lifetime ago. Your number one pick was The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. I'm really happy to say I did an interview with Amanda yesterday that should be up this week, and she's terrific. We've got The Spy Coast by Tess Gerritsen, also interviewed her. The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose, interviewed her. Very Inconvenient Scandal by Jacqueline Michard. Gillian McMillan's The Manor House, interviewed her. And Mitch Albom's The Little Liar. So there were your picks from last month. And we've got something else as well. We asked you about your top January, February picks because we did some previews of those books as well. Not surprisingly, Kristen Hanna's number one. It's going to be a bets on selection from me. And also, we are going to be doing a very special presentation with her on March 6th at 7 o'clock, and we'll give you more details about that. Got The Last Van Gogh by Jonathan Santlifer, which I just saw hit the USA Today bestseller list today. Diva by Daisy Goodwin, true favorite of mine. I'm going to try to interview her. The Aros by Rachel Hawkins. The Fury by Alice Michaelides, which I read last week. It's going to be a bets on selection. It takes place on an island and it was sunny. And believe me, when it was snowing here, I wanted to read it. And End of the Story by A.J. Finn. So there's your top picks from what's coming up. So let's give you more of what's coming up this next month. We're going to start out with fiction. And we're going to start out with The Book of Fire by Christy Leftieri. The pleasure of meeting her a couple of years ago when she was in the States, and she was talking about the beekeeper of Aleppo. And here, once again, we're in present-day Greece, deep in an ancient forest. And there's a family, Irene, a musician, who teaches her children to read and play music. Her husband, Tasso, who paints pictures of the forest, his great muse. And Shara, their young daughter, whose name means joy. On the fateful day that will forever alter the trajectory of their lives, flames chase across, fleeing birds across the sky. The wildfire that will consume their home and their lives as they know it races towards them. Months later, as the villagers try to rebuild, Irene stumbles upon the man who started the fire, a land speculator who had intended only a small controlled burn to clear forest land to build on, but instead ignited a catastrophe. He's dying, although the cause is unclear. And in her anger at all that he took from them, she makes a split-second decision that will haunt her. So there we've got The Book of Fire. Next, we've got Mercury by Amy Jo Burns. It's January's Barnes & Noble Book Club pick. It's 1990, and 17-year-old Marley West is blazing into the river valley of Mercury, Pennsylvania. Perpetual loner, she seeks a place at someone's table and a family of her own. First thing she sees when she arrives in town is three men standing on a rooftop. The Joseph brothers become Marley's whole world before she can blink. Soon, she's a young wife to one, the one who got away to another, and the adopted mother to them all. As their own mother fades away and the roofing business crumbles under the weight of their unwieldy father's inflated ego, Marley steps in to shepherd these unruly men. Years later, an eerie discovery in the church attic causes old wounds to resurface, and suddenly the family's survival hangs in the balance. We've got Mercury. Next, we've got Holiday Country by Trek. Ada adores spending every summer in a Turkish seaside town with her mother and grandmother at the family villa. The glittering waters, endless olive groves, and her spirited friends make it easy to leave her idle life in California behind. But no matter how much Ada feels she belongs to the country where her mother grew up, her connection to the culture, it feels as fleeting as the seasons. When Levent, a mysterious man from her mother's past, shows up in their town, Ada can't help but imagine a different future for her mother, one that promises a return to home, to love, to happiness. But while playing matchmaker, Ada has to come to terms with her own intensifying attraction to Levent. Does the future she's fighting for belong to her mother or to her alone? So there we've got Holiday Country, another book that takes place someplace warm. Next, we've got Old Crimes by Jill McCorkle. And I loved hearing Jill talked about this in a preview presentation last fall. It's on sale this week. Her short story collection delves into the lives of characters who hold their secrets and their misdeeds close, even as the past continues to reverberate over time and across generations. And despite the character's yearnings for connection, can't seem to tell the whole truth. In Low Tones, a woman uses her hearing impairment as a way to guard herself from her husband's commentary. In Lineman, a telephone lineman strains to connect to his family, even as he feels pushed aside in a digital world. In Confessional, a young couple buys a confessional booth for fun, only to discover the cost of honesty. So there you've got old crimes, which are definitely going to be told in Jill's signature voice. Next, we've got The Waters by Bonnie Jo Campbell. This is the Read with Jenna Today Show Book Club pick for January. We should have guessed this because when we featured this book last May as part of our book group speed dating program, they moved the book to January. And I said, that should have been a big note to us of what was going on. So once here we've got on an island near the Great Manasquaga Swamp, an area known as The Waters, to the residents of the nearby White Hart, Michigan, herbalist and eccentric Hermione herself, Zook, has healed the local women of their ailments for generations. Stubborn as her tonics are powerful, herself inspires reverence and fear in the people of White Hart, and even in her own 3 estranged daughters. The youngest, the beautiful, inscrutable, and lazy Rose Thorne, has left her own daughter, 11-year-old Dorothy, Donkey Zook, to grow up wild. Donkey spends her days searching for truths in the lush landscape and in her math books, waiting for her wayward mother and longing for a father, unaware that family secrets, passionate love, and violent men will flood through the swamp and upend her idyllic childhood. I think this is such a really pretty cover. Next, we've got Family by Lori Frankel, coming on January 23rd. India Allwood grew up wanting to be an actor. She goes from awkward 16-year-old to Broadway ingenue to TV superhero. Her new movie is a prestige picture about adoption, but its spin is the same old tired story of tragedy. India is an adoptive mom in real life, though. She wants everyone to know there's more to her family than pain and regret, so she does something you should never do. She tells a journalist the truth. It's a bad move. Soon, she's at the center of a media storm, battling accusations from the press and the paparazzi. Her twin 10-year-olds know they need help, and who better to call than family? But that's where it gets really messy, because India is not just an adoptive mother. So there we've got a story of, whenever you become a star, they tell you don't talk to the press unless you're really on and you pay attention, because you don't know what's going to get picked up. Harbor Lights by James Lee Burke is coming on January 23rd as well. These 8 stories move from the marshlands on the Gulf of Mexico to the sweeping plains of Colorado, to prisons, saloons, and trailer parks across the South, weaving together love, friendship, violence, survival, and revenge. A boy and his father watch a German submarine sink an oil tanker as evil forces in the disguise of federal agents try to ruin their family. Girls beaten up outside a bar as her university professor father navigates new love and threats from a group of neo-Nazis. A pair of undercover union organizers are hired to break cults for a Hollywood actor whose Western hero facade hides darkness. An oil rig worker witnesses a horrific attack on a local village while on a job in South America and seeks justice through one final act of bravery. What's interesting about short stories, especially from an author that you've seen write really long books, is the way they can take something and just crystallize it in a short number of pages. And you see how brilliant the writing is, because without the long form of what to do, how they can tell a story so concisely and so beautifully. And there are times where you don't want to read a long book. You just want to read a number of stories. And if it's a favorite author like James Lee Burke, you want to take a look at how he's handling stories at this time. Next, we've got Belonging by Jill Fordyce, and I've had the pleasure of working with Jill on this book. I saw a galley of her, or a manuscript of it years ago, and it was so much fun a couple of months ago to sit there and read what the book became after all this time. It's coming on January 30th. Jenny's 13 when an epic dust storm runs through her Central California town in December 1977. Bedridden after contracting a life-threatening illness in the storm and suffering a shocking loss, she realized she will never be cared for by the mother who both neglects and terrifies her, or her father who allows it. She relies on her cousin Heather, who has a loving home. That's something that Jenny longs for. And her beloved great uncle Gino, the last link between generations, her best friend. And Henry is a free spirit with whom she shares an inexplicable bond, and an earnest baseball star, Billy, who becomes her first love. After a stunning turn of events in both of their lives, Jenny and Henry leave for college in LA together in the summer of 1982. Jenny fleeing a broken heart, and Henry running from something he can't reveal, even to his best friend. And when she returns home years later, the life that Jenny so carefully created collides with the one she left behind. And it's all about belonging in a place. And when you leave that place, going back. Jill is a big photographer. She loves photography. She loves telling stories of her children through photography. Through the years, she said she would just snap candid pictures of them. And she's got a beautiful collection of those as a result, instead of those stayed pictures where, let's face it, one child never does what they're supposed to do anyway. And she just loves capturing different scenes. And the book is very cinematic as a result, because you're picturing everything that you see there through the pictures that she would have taken at that moment. Come and Get It by Kylie Reed is coming on January 30th as well. It's 2017 at the University of Arkansas. Millie Cousins, a senior resident assistant, wants to graduate, get a job, and buy a house. So when Agatha Paul, a visiting professor and writer, offers Millie an easy yet unusual opportunity, she jumps at the chance. But Millie's starry-eyed hustle becomes jeopardized by odd new friends, vengeful dorm pranks, and illicit intrigue. And you know Kylie as the author of Such a Fun Age that came out a couple of years ago. Next, we've got Good Material by Dolly Alderton, also coming on January 30th. Andy loves Jen, Jen loves Andy, and he can't work out why she stopped. Now Andy is without a home, waiting for a stand-up career to take off, and wondering why everyone else around him seems to have grown up when he wasn't looking. Set adrift in the sea of heartbreak, Andy clings to the idea of solving the puzzle of his ruined relationship. But he can't find the answer to that, then maybe Jen can find her way back to him. But Andy still has a lot to learn, not least his ex-girlfriend's side of the story, because you always know there are two sides of the story when everybody breaks up. She is the New York Times bestselling author of Everything I Know About Love. So you can just picture how she's taking that theory apart in Good Material. Next, we've got House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas, which is coming on January 30th. Those who are fantasy lovers are ready for this book, and I can see people lining up. Bryce Quinlan never expected to see a world other than Midgard, but now that she has, all she wants is to get back. Everything she loves is in Midgard, her family, her friends, her mate. Stranded in a strange new world, she's growing to need all her wits about her to get home. And that's no easy feat, because she has no idea who to trust. After a few brief months with everyone he ever wanted, Hunt Althalar is in Asteria's dungeons again, stripped of his freedom and without a clue as to Bryce's fate. He's desperate to help her, but he can't until he can escape Asteria's leash. His hands are quite literally tied. So I know that people are definitely waiting for this book. It's a Crescent City novel. Next, we've got 1 Hour of Fervor by Muriel Barbary. And if that name is familiar to you, it's because she's the author of The Elegance of the Hedgehog. It's also coming on January 30th. Haru, a successful Japanese art dealer, loves beauty, harmony, art, balance, intriguing women, sophisticated conversation, and elegance. Months after a brief affair in Japan with a French woman, Maud, he discovers she's pregnant with his child. However, she warns them that if he ever tries to see her or the child, she will kill herself. Quietly devastated at the thought of never knowing his daughter, who will become a dark presence in an otherwise elegantly orchestrated life, Haru decides he will respect Maud's wishes. His daughter grows to adulthood without even knowing him. Is it too late to change things? There was 1 Hour of Fervor. Next, we've got A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. It's coming on February 6th. Ricky Wilde has many talents, but being wild isn't one of them. As the impulsive, artistic daughter of a powerful Atlanta dynasty, she's the opposite of her famous socialite sisters. In her bones, Ricky knows that a more exciting life awaits her somewhere. Where's that? When regal nonagarian Miss Delia invites her to rent the bottom floor of her Harlem brownstone, Ricky jumps at the chance for a fresh beginning. She leaves behind her family, wealth, chaotic romantic decisions to realize her dream, opening a flower shop. But just beneath the surface of her new neighborhood, the music, stories, and dazzling drama of the Harlem Renaissance still simmers. One evening in February, Ricky encounters a handsome, deeply mysterious stranger who knocks her world off balance in the most unexpected way. Probably remember as the author of the best-selling novel 7 Days in June. Next, let's do some historical fiction. And we're going to kick off with The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. It's the January Good Morning America book pick. I am reading this book and listening to it at the same time. It is truly terrific. And the voice in it is so wonderful. What's also so exciting is Vanessa is definitely excited about this book coming out. She did a fabulous Instagram post last week where she went to bookstores in Brooklyn and just walked in and signed the books wherever they were. And it was really nice to see an author so excited about getting out and seeing their work for the first time. I mean, we just get one book, but imagine seeing a whole stack or opening a box of the books that you've been waiting so long for. So where does this book start? It's Malaya, 1945. Cecily Alcantara's 15-year-old son, Abel, has disappeared, and her youngest daughter, Jasmine, is confined in a basement to prevent being pressed into service at the comfort stations. Her eldest daughter, Jujubee, works at a tea house frequented by drunk Japanese soldiers, and she becomes angrier by the day. A decade prior, Cecily had been desperate to be more than a housewife to a low-level bureaucrat in British colonized Malaya. Chance meeting with the charismatic General Fitzgerald lured her into a life of espionage, pursuing dreams of an Asia for Asians. Instead, Cecily helped her usher in an even more brutal occupation by the Japanese. 10 years later, her actions have caught up with her, and now her family is on the brink of destruction, and she will do anything to save them. It's really interesting, but the opening of this book is young people are disappearing. Like they're just disappearing off the street. Son doesn't come home. Somebody else is missing. And the neighbors start talking and they start realizing it's happening to more than just their family. And then what's happening along the way is where an invasion is happening into Malaya, and it's not happening at the sea where the British were helping guard it, but it's coming from up in the north. And it's just really interesting to see that the storm was something that these people, she really set up and made herself, but then how do we undo what's happening? It's very, very well done. But one of those books that you have to read slowly to sort of figure out everything that's going on, because it's a story about a place that we don't know a lot about. Cold Victory by Cora Molantes is out this week as well. He's the author of Matterhorn. Here we've got a book taking place in Helsinki in 1947. Finland teeters between the Soviet Union and the West. Everyone is being watched. A wrong look, a wrong word could end in catastrophe. Natalia Boborova from Russia and Louise Kosicki from the United States are young wives of their country's military attaches. They meet at an embassy party. Their husbands, world-class skiers Arnie and Mikhail, drunkenly challenge each other to a friendly but secret cross-country wilderness race. News of the race gets out and Mikhail loses. Natalia knows it would mean his death, his imprisonment, and the loss of her 2 children. And meanwhile, Louise, who is childless, uses the race as an opportunity to raise money for a local orphanage, naive to the danger it will bring to Natalia and her family. So I'm somebody who's loved to ski for years, and I am just picturing them drunkenly challenging themselves to this cross-country wilderness race with very dire consequences for one of the families and the other one completely unknown. It's a very beautiful cover as well. Next, we've got Diva by Daisy Goodwin. I think I'm trying to remember what her last book was, and it's going to come to me in a second. Hold on a second. Book is coming out on January 23rd. In the glittering and ruthlessly competitive world of opera, Maria Callas was known simply as La Divina, the Divine One. But her fame was hard-won. Raised in Nazi-occupied Greece by a woman who mercilessly exploited her golden voice, she learned early in life to protect herself from those that would use her for their own ends. And then she meets the fabulously rich shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis. For For the first time in her life, she believed she found someone who saw the woman within the legendary soprano. She felt desperately in love. And then suddenly it was over. The international press announced that Aristotle Onassis would marry the most famous woman in the world, former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy, leaving Maria to pick up the pieces. So Diva in her hands, I know, is going to be really well done. The last book she did, Tom will remind me because I cannot remember, but it'll come to me. It'll come to me. Next, we've got The Women by Kristen Hanna, which is coming on February 6th. I have read this book. I love this book. We're going to be talking to Kristen on March 6th at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's a book reporter bets on selection. There's just so much that I can be saying about this book. Kristen waited years to write a book that took place in Vietnam. She'd originally had the idea in 1997, and her editor at the time said to her, "You're too young to write that book. You need to have more time writing and more experience and distance from the subject in order to write it." And it was interesting because I was at a luncheon a couple of months ago where Kristen was speaking, and that editor was at the luncheon and came over to say hi. And so I put the pieces together that was sort of the backstory on what happened. So what do we have here? Women can be heroes too. And when we think of Vietnam veterans, we often think about the men, and Kristen is writing about the women. When 20-year-old nursing student Frances Frankie McGrath hears these unexpected words, it's a revelation. Raised on an idyllic Coronado Island and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing and being a good girl. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly imagines a very different choice for her life. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she impulsively joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, she's overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war, as well as the unexpected trauma of coming home to a changed and politically divided America. What's interesting is I was about halfway through the book when Frankie comes home. So there's a whole other story when she comes back. Kristen's very, very proud of this book. She's very proud of the research that she did on it, and it completely holds up. I think that people are really going to enjoy it. We selected 25 readers to read the book in advance. They've been giving us their comments, which are glowing. And besides that, they're giving us questions that we're going to be asking Kristen on March 6th. Next, we've got Thrillers and Mysteries. Starting out with Anna O by Matthew Blake, which I am reading right now. It's one of those books that was very, very talked about, like The Silent Patient and some of the other big thrillers that we've read or heard about, and it's measuring up to those. Anna Ogilvy was a budding 25-year-old writer with a bright future. And then one night, she stabbed 2 people to death with no apparent motive, and she hasn't woken up since. Dubbed Sleeping Beauty by the tabloids, Anna's condition is a rare psychosomatic disorder known to neurologists as resignation syndrome. Dr. Benedict Prince is a forensic psychologist and an expert in the field of sleep-related homicides. His methods are the last hope of solving the infamous Anna O case and waking Anna up so she can stand trial. But he must be careful treating such a high-profile suspect. He has career secrets and a complicated personal life of his own. As she shows the first signs of stirring, he must determine what really happened and if she should be held responsible for her crimes. So there's Anna O, and she's still sleeping at the part I'm in the book. Next, we've got First Sly Wins. This book is Reese's book club pick for January. It's on sale now. I'm crazy about this book. Here's why. A lot of thrillers follow traditional paths, and this one does anything but. It's got all these twists, all these turns to it. And many times you're sitting there going, wait, what just happened? But it's sly and it's perfect. So that when Ashley does it, you don't really think you were tricked. You just think you weren't as smart as she was. It's a bets on selection. I'm going to be talking to her next week. And here's what we've got. Identity comes first. Evie Porter. Once she's given a name and a location by her mysterious boss, Mr. Smith, she learns everything there is to know about the town and the people in it. Then the mark, Ryan Summer. The last piece of the puzzle is the job. Evie isn't privy to Mr. Smith's real identity, but she knows this job is going to be different. Ryan has gotten under her skin, and she's starting to envision a different sort of life for herself. But she can't make any mistakes, especially what happened last time. Because the one thing she's worked her entire life to keep clean, the one identity that she could always go back to, her real identity, just walked into this town. Evie Porter must stay one step ahead of her past while making sure there's still a future in front of her. So just picture you walk into town and you're not saying who you are, and then somebody comes in and says exactly what your real name is and where it goes from there. A reviewer was crazy about this book last week. Ray just can't wait to see what she does next, and he's hoping she keeps this character, which I'll be asking her about when I interview her next week. Next, we've got The Last Van Gogh by Jonathan Santlifer, which is out now as well. For years, been whispers that before his death, Van Gogh completed a final self-portrait. Curators and art historians have savored this rumor, hoping it could illuminate some of the troubled artist's many secrets, but even they have to concede that the missing painting is likely lost forever. But when Luc Perron, artist and great-grandson of the man who stole the Mona Lisa, remember Jonathan's last book, Lost Mona Lisa, and Alexis Verd, the daughter of a notorious art thief, discover what may be the missing portrait, they're drawn in a most epic art puzzle. When only days later the painting disappears again, they were united with Interpol agent John Washington Smith in a dangerous and deadly search that will not only expose secrets of the artist's last days, but draw them into one of history's darkest eras. Jonathan is an artist himself. When he talks about the art world, when he writes about the art world, it's terrific. I've not had a chance to read this yet, but he did send me this absolutely beautiful sketch that he made that he did a limited number of that I am going to frame, because it's just a beautiful picture of, like, what he's seeing in the book and what he wants people to be taking away from it. So I'm looking forward to it because I really enjoyed his book about the last Mona Lisa. Rabbit Hole by Kate Brody is on sale now. 10 years ago, Theodora, Teddy Angstrom's older sister Angie, went missing. Her case remains unsolved. Now Teddy's father, Mark, has killed himself. Unbeknownst to Mark's family, he had been active in a Reddit community fixated on Angie. Teddy can't help but fall down the same rabbit hole. Teddy's investigation quickly gets her into hot water with her gun-nut boyfriend, her long-lost half-brother, and her colleagues at the prestigious high school where she teaches English. Further complicating matters is Teddy's growing obsession with Mickey, a charming amateur sleuth who is eerily keen on helping her solve the case. As she struggles to reconcile new information with old memories, Teddy's erratic behavior reaches a fever pitch, but she won't stop until she finds Angie. I love this cover. It's my color. I feel like I should just get this and have it on my desk. And I think it's very artfully done, the way the face is there as well. So Alessa Shaken, who wrote Saint X, which I really enjoyed, some Angie mystery that kept me turning pages feverishly right to the finish. Looking forward to reading that one. Next, we've got Wool by Hugh Howey. This one we're bringing to your attention is out in paperback. It's now a series on Apple TV. A lot of our original readers that were in our chat rooms when we were first on AOL loved Hugh Howey and loved Wool. And this includes a new essay, The History of the Darkest Yarns. First book of the acclaimed New York Times bestselling trilogy, Wool, is the story of a mankind calling for survival. The world outside has grown toxic, the view of it limited, talk of it forbidden. The remnants of humanity live together underground in a single silo. But there are always those who hope, who dream. These are the dangerous people, the residents who infect the others with their optimism. The punishment is simple. They're given the very thing they want. They're allowed to go outside. So there you've got suspense. And we've got a book that finally, think about all these years later, is coming out, a show based on the book. Next, we've got The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. Let me get this woman's name correct. This is Ruby McTavish Cowan Woodward Miller Kenmore dies. She's not only North Carolina's richest woman, she's also the most notorious. The victim of a famous kidnapping as a child and a widow 4 times over, hence all those names, Ruby ruled the tiny town of Tavistock from the Ashby House, her family's estate high up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. But in the aftermath of Ruby's death, her adopted son Camden wants little to do with the house or the money, and even less to do with the surviving McTavishes. 10 years later, his uncle's death pulls Camden and his wife Jules back into the family fold at Ashby House. Its views are just as stunning as ever, its rooms just as elegant, but the legacy of Ruby is inescapable. And as Ashby House tightens its grip on the Camden and Jules, questions about the infamous heiress come to light. So there you've got The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins, another beautiful cover. Next, we've got The Fury by Alice Michaelides, coming on January 16th. Lana Farrar is a reclusive ex-movie star and one of the most famous women in the world. Every year, she invites her closest friends to escape the English weather and spend Easter on her idyllic private island in Greece. I tell you this because you may think you know the story. You've probably read about it at the time. It caused a real stir in the tabloids, if you remember. We found ourselves trapped there overnight. Our old friendships concealed hatred and a desire for revenge. What followed is a game of cat and mouse. The night ended in violence and death as one of us was found murdered. My name is Elliot Chase, and I'm going to tell you a story unlike any you've ever heard. And what's really fun about this book is you start reading one thing and something's happening. Start reading it another way, something else is happening. And you trick back and forth in the book where your very unreliable Elliot is taking you on the ride. So first of all, I loved being on a Greek island when it was snowing last weekend. But besides that, it was the way he tricked us going back and forth with the story. I just learned that the Silent Patient, I believe, has 7.5 million copies out there right now around the world, which is truly amazing. Next, we've got Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham coming on January 16th. Lucy Sharp is larger than life, especially for shy, unassuming Margot, who meets Lucy at the end of their freshman year at a liberal arts college in South Carolina. But when Lucy asks her to room together, something Margot can't say no. So Margot finds herself living in an off-campus house with 3 other girls, Lucy, the ringleader, Sloane, the sarcastic one, and Nicole, the nice one. It's a year that finds Margot coming out of the shell she's been in since the end of high school, when her best friend Eliza died 3 weeks after graduation. Margot and Lucy have become the closest of friends, but by the middle of their sophomore year, one of the fraternity boys from the house next door has been brutally murdered, and Lucy Sharp is missing without a trace. So we will see what happens from a woman who is larger than life, what actually happened. Mary Kubica said, this is hypnotic and haunting. Willingham's latest is a masterpiece. And you may know her as last year she wrote The Flicker in the Dark. Silence in Her Eyes is coming from Armando Lucas Correa, and it's a different genre for him to be writing a thriller. It's coming on January 16th. Leah has been living with, let's see, this is a good one, acantopsia, or motion blindness, since she was a child. For the last 20 years, she hasn't been able to see movement, but she does see a good deal. With her acute senses of smell and hearing, very little escapes her notice. But when Alice moves into the apartment next door, Leah can immediately smell the anxiety wafting off of her. Worse, she can't help but hear Alice and a late-night visitor engage in a violent fight. Then one night, Leah wakes up to someone in her apartment. She blacks out, and in the morning is left wondering if she dreamt the episode. Yet the scent of the intruder follows her everywhere. And when she hears Alice through the wall pleading for help, Leah makes a decision that will test her courage, her strength, and ultimately her sanity. I started listening to this book. Probably know the author as the author of The German Girl. I started listening to it on audio, and it was really interesting to hear the story being told without me reading, because remember, she's not able to read because of motion blindness. So I was hearing the story and I was hearing what was going on. So it's the silence in her eyes, and she's, doing everything by hearing it. It was a very interesting way to have a gateway entrance into the book. Next, we've got The Missing Witness from Allison Brennan, also coming on January 23rd. Detective Kara Quinn is back in Los Angeles to testify against a notorious human trafficker. But when the accused is shot in broad daylight, the chaotic scene of the crime turns up a few reliable bystanders, and one witness, a whistleblower who might be the key to everything, has disappeared. After another person close to the case is killed, it's clear that anyone who knows too much is in danger, and tracking down the witness becomes a matter of life and death. But as explosive secrets surface between the LAPD and the FBI, Kara questions everything she thought she knew about the case, her colleagues, and the life she left behind months ago. So this is a Quinn and Costa thriller, but as all of her books, you will be able to read it as a standalone. Run One Wrong Word from Hank Philippi Ryan. Let's see where she's going to take us this time. It's coming on February 6th. I just got this the other day, and I'm so looking forward to it. Unfairly accused of having an affair with a powerful client, crisis management expert Arden Ward's life and dreams are about to crash and burn. She has just 2 weeks to save her career and her reputation. Cordelia Bannister needs Arden's help for her husband, Ned, who was recently acquitted in a fatal drunk driving accident. But the fallout is devastating for his family. Revelations begin to emerge about what really happened the night of the accident. And then another car crash throws Ned back into the spotlight. The more Arden tries to untangle the truth, the more she's haunted by one disturbing question. What if she's also protecting a killer? So, in Hank's hands, we're going to go in a lot of different directions with this. And like a little aside here, if I ever had a girl, her name was going to be Arden Alexandra. So whenever I see that name in a book, I'm like, oh, Arden, it could have been a girl. You could have been my girl. Next, we've got Owning Up by George Pelecanos coming on February 6th. Steamed crime fiction writer George Pelecanos has penned 4 blistering novellas drawn together by themes of strife, violence, and humanity. When the son of the Carusos involved in a holdup, the family home comes under siege in the form of a no-knock warrant. Months after the cops destroyed their home, the Carusos struggle to return to normal. 2 former inmates reunite by chance on the set of a TV production. Both have found their way on the straight and narrow until one sees the potential for an easy grift and gift, both. A teenage boy must step into the man he'd like to be as a hostage crisis grips his hometown. And a woman adrift meets a man tied to her grandmother's past, an encounter that wakens her to a bloody history that undergirds the place she grew up. Now, as I said before, it's really interesting when an author that we know, as always writing novels, is writing short novellas, 4 blistering novellas. They're going to follow each other. And just like we saw with James Lee Burke with the stories, let's see how they handle these shorter stories. And remember, George Pelecanos was also the writer of many TV shows that went over long periods of time. To see something doing bright, quick and concise, will be interesting to take a look at. Price You Pay by Nick Petrie, because he's become one of my husband's favorite writers. We've got a number of people that write thrillers that are definitely Tom books, as I call them. And definitely Nick is one of them. It's a Peter Ash novel. It's coming on February 6th. Lewis has helped Peter Ash out of more trouble than Peter cares to remember. So he doesn't hesitate when Lewis helps for a favor in return. Lewis has left his criminal past behind, but he and Peter must drive into a blizzard to help a former associate. They learn that someone has stolen notebooks full of incriminating secrets about Lewis's long-ago crimes, and they realize the situation is much worse than they thought. To save Lewis's wife and 2 boys, Lewis and Peter must find the notebooks. With Peter's longtime girlfriend, they begin the search, facing ruthless and violent foes at each turn, including one powerful person who will stop at nothing for revenge. Will Lewis and Peter be able to keep that dark past buried, or will they step into the darkness to save the people they love most? It's really interesting with thrillers these days. We have like cell phones, like you can get any bit of information pretty quickly. I mean, you ask me a question, like when is the NFL playing? I can have it for you in seconds. When is this happening? How do you make a menu, like a certain recipe? How do you do anything? You can do pretty quickly. So now when you're writing thrillers, you've got to go deeper to see how you're not going to be able to use any of these tools that you have right at your fingertips to be able to tell a story. And a lot of thriller writers are saying, with all the technology that we've got today, you've either got to have a place where, you're blacked out and you can't get any signal, or what are you going to do to not be able to share information? When you're sitting on an island someplace, how are you not going to text the person, I'm coming to get you? Or don't look behind you, or whatever was going on. So it's very interesting to see what thriller writers are doing today to try and be able to tell a story that works. Next, we've got The Teacher by Freida McFadden. Many of you have seen that she's on the New York Times and many lists for the thrillers that she's been writing. Freida McFadden is actually not her real name. She's actually a doctor who left her profession at the end of December. And I saw an interview with her where she said that no one knew that she actually was Freida McFadden, this best-selling writer. So I can imagine when she went in to resign and said, hi, I just want to tell you who I really am. You may remember her book, The Housemaid. Well, here we've got Eve has a good life. She gets up every day, gets a kiss from her husband, Nate, and heads off to teach math at the local high school. All is as it should be, except, and with thrillers, except is that big word. Last year, Casement High was rocked by a scandal with one student, Addie, at its center. And this year, Eve is dismayed to find that that girl is in her class. Addie can't be trusted. She lies. She hurts people. She destroys lives. At least that's what everyone says. But no one knows the real Addie. No one knows the secrets that could destroy her. And Addie will do anything to keep it quiet. So there you've got Frida McFadden's latest. This is an author that you may remember the name of, but we haven't heard from him in a while. It's Terry Hayes, and he is the author of the mega best-selling author of I Am Pilgrim. How many of you remembered reading I Am Pilgrim years ago? We were all waiting for a follow-up to it. Well, we're not getting a follow-up to that book here. Instead, we're getting The Year of the Locust, and it is a behemoth book, folks. It's coming on February 6th. If you're a denied access area spy for the CIA like Kane is, then boundaries have no meaning. But some places are too dangerous, even for a man of Kane's experience. The Badlands, where the borders of Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan meet, are such a place where violence is the only way to survive. Kane travels there to exfiltrate a man with vital information for the safety of the West. But instead, he meets an adversary who will take the world to the brink of extinction. Now, I just know in this man's hands, we are going to be pulled really deep into a story. I Am Pilgrim. I still remember practically where I sat reading that book. So really interested to get my pages start turning on The Year of the Locust, which is sitting on my shelf. Next week, a couple of memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. We're starting out with Christopher Hitchens, A Hitchin Time, Reflections Ready for Reconsideration. Anthologized here for the first time, A Hitchin Time is a choice selection of Christopher Hitchens' finest reviews, diary entries, and essays, along with a smattering of ferocious letters. Here's a banquet of entertaining stories ranging from his thoughts on Salman Rushdie to being spanked by Margaret Thatcher in the House of Lords and the night he took his son to the Oscars. The broad scope and high caliber of his essays allow his work to transcend the occasion for which it was written and continues to be essential reading. We also got Naomi Osaka, Her Journey to Finding Her Power and Her Voice by Ben Rothenberg. Most tennis fans were introduced to Naomi as they watched her win the 2018 US Open final, an unforgettably controversial and dramatic victory over her idol, Serena Williams. Since then, Osaka has galvanized the tennis world and gained attention across the culture, not only as winning 3 more majors, but by finding her own voice. Until now, the story of the Haitian, Japanese, American Osaka's family journey across the world to follow their tennis dreams and how their youngest daughter found her power off the court has remained little known. Ben Rothenberg's biography not only shows where Osaka came from, but also where she's going as she returns to competitive tennis after a year on maternity leave. And this will be timed around the time of the Australian Open, which I believe is in February. Tom Donadio, our editorial director and resident tennis expert, will be sure to correct me if I'm wrong on the timing, but I believe it is in February, and he will be up at all hours of the morning to watch it. So just know those little facts I do know. Now let's look at some March titles. Got a lot to look forward to here. We're going to start by Anita Delonte, What Laughs Last, and it's by Xochitl Gonzalez. And I know that's pronunciation of her name because I interviewed her when her last book came out, Olga Dies Dreaming. It's coming on March 5th. In 1985, Anita Delonte, a rising star in the art world, is found dead in New York City. But by 1998, Anita's name has been all but forgotten, certainly by the time Raquel, a third-year art history student, is preparing her final thesis. On College Hill, surrounded by privileged students whose futures are already paved out for them, Raquel feels like an outsider. Students of color like her are a minority there, and the pressure to work twice as hard for the same opportunities is no secret. But when Raquel becomes romantically involved with a well-connected older art student, she finds herself unexpectedly rising up the social ranks. As she attempts to straddle both worlds, she stumbles upon Anita's story, raising questions about the dynamics of her own relationship, which eerily mirrors that of the forgotten artist. So there we've got Anita Delonte, Laughs Last. Next, we've got Finlay Donovan Rolls Her Dice. It's the latest in the Finlay Donovan series from El Cosimano. You see her tossing those dice out the window. L is, these books are the ones that are being praised by Janet Ivanovich of saying Finlay Donovan is irresistible. Finlay Donovan and her nanny partner in crime, Vero, are planning a trip to Atlantic City. But odds are it won't be all fun and games, seeing it's actually a cover story to negotiate a deal with a dangerous loan shark, save Vero's childhood crush, Javi, from a kidnapper, Marco, and hunt down a stolen car. I mean, it's an easy trip down to Atlantic City. When they sneak into the loan shark's suite to search for clues, they find more than they bargained for. Marco's already dead. They don't know who murdered him, only that they themselves have a very convincing motive. Will Finlay fold under the pressure and come clean about the things she's done, or is she going to be forced to double down? Looking forward to this one. The freak books of this series have been a lot of fun, so it's going to be interesting to see what she does here. I love those purple sunglasses. Next, we've got Tana French, The Hunter. You know her as the author of The Searcher. Beautiful, very, very, very plain cover in a lot of ways, but very evocative at the same time. Cal Hooper took early retirement from the Chicago PD and moved to rural Ireland looking for peace. He's found it, more or less. He's built a relationship with a local woman, Lena, and he's gradually turning Trey Reddy from a half-feral teenager into a good kid going places. But then Trey's long-absent father reappears, bringing along an English millionaire and a scheme to find gold in the townland. Suddenly, everything the three of them have been building is under threat. Cal and Lena are both ready to do whatever it is to protect Trey, but Trey doesn't want protecting. What she wants is revenge. So there we've got The Hunter. Housed in the middle of nowhere. Let's see what happens. Next, we've got The New Couple in 5B from Lisa Unger. Last book was Secluded Cabin, Sleep 6. So here's what's going to happen to this couple in 5B. Rosie and Chad Lowen are barely making ends meet in New York City when they receive life-changing news. Chad's late uncle has left them his luxury apartment at the historic Windermere in glamorous Murray Hill. The epitome of old New York charm, one would almost never suspect the dark history lurking behind the building's perfectly manicured facade. As the Lowens settle into their new home, Rosie suspects that there's more to Windermere than meets the eye. Why is the doorman ever present? Why are there cameras everywhere? And why have so many gruesome crimes occurred there through the years? When one of the neighbors turns up dead, Rosie must get the truth about Windermere before she, too, falls under its dangerous spell. You always notice that people have no money, and all of a sudden they get money. And when they get the money, things don't go so well. Just keep that in mind. All people who sit there and say, we want the money, you get to Windermere, and then what do you have to worry about? Are you going to fall under the spell? Still See You Everywhere by Lisa Gardner is her latest novel with Frankie Elkin as her protagonist. And it's interesting because a couple of years ago, I interviewed Lisa and she says, I want to write a standalone. So I wrote this standalone with this character named Frankie Elkin. And all of a sudden now, the Frankie Elkin series. Who knows? The case was sensational. Kaylee Pearson had confessed from the very beginning. Despite the media's chronicling her childhood spent with a violent father, no one could find sympathy for the beautiful butcher who led 18 men home from bars before viciously slitting their throats. 12 years ago, Pearson's 5-year-old sister, Leilani, went missing in Hawaii, and the main suspect was Pearson's ex-boyfriend. Now, with only 3 weeks left to live, Pearson has finally received a lead on her sister's whereabouts. Frankie Elkin takes on Pearson's request to find Leilani on the remote island in the middle of the Pacific. In order to learn the truth and possibly save a young woman's life, Frankie must go undercover at the isolated base camp. So there you see, Still See You Everywhere. Next, from Rebecca Searle, who you know is the author of In 5 Years, we've got Expiration Dates coming on March 19th. Daphne Bell believes that the universe has a plan for her. Every time she meets a new man, she receives a slip of paper with his name and a number on it, the exact amount of time they will be together. An expiration date. Daphne has been receiving the numbered pages for over 20 years, always wondering when there might be one without an expiration. Finally, the night of a bland date at her favorite Los Angeles restaurant, there's only a name, Jake. But as Jake and Daphne's story unfolds, Daphne finds herself doubting the page's prediction and wrestling with what it means to both be committed and truthful, because Daphne knows things Jake doesn't, information that would break his heart if he found out. So you just imagine getting a little piece of paper and you see Jake, and then you might sit there and say, is something missing on the other side? Where's his expiration date? Fun premise. Next, we've got Finding Margaret Fuller. That's coming from Alison Pataki. And we know our readers love Alison Pataki. She's the author of The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post. She does such great research. Whatever she writes about a character, this is coming on March 19th. We are all excited about it. After Margaret Fuller accepts a party invitation from Ralph Waldo Emerson, the celebrated sage of Concord, she becomes the radiant genius and fiery heart of the transcendentalists. But Margaret craves more than poetry and interpersonal drama, and her restless soul needs new challenges and adventures. When legendary editor Horace Greeley offers her an assignment in Europe, Margaret makes history as the first female foreign news correspondent. In Rome, she finds a world of passion, romance, and revolution, taking Roman Count as her lover and sparking an international scandal. Evolving yet again in the role of mother and countess, Margaret enters the fight for Italy's unification. So we've got a woman that we see one way at the beginning, and then I know through Alison's research, we're going to see her full story right through to the end. Looking forward to this and doing a lot with Alison. Next, we've got The Morningside from Tia Albrecht, which is coming on March 18th. And you know her as the author of The Tiger's Wife. After being expelled from their ancestral home in a not-so-distant future, Sylvia and her mother finally settle in the Morningside, a crumbling luxury tower where Sylvia's Aunt Edna serves as the superintendent. Sylvia knows almost nothing about the place where she was born and spent her early years, nor does she fully understand why she and her mother had to leave. But in Ina, Sylvia finds a person willing to give glimpses into the folk tales of her demolished homeland. Enchanted by Ina's stories, Sylvia begins to see the world with magical possibilities and becomes obsessed with Bessie DeRoss, the mysterious older woman who lives in the penthouse of the Morningside. Sylvia's mission to unravel the truth about this woman's life and her own haunted past may end up costing her everything. Once again, you want to see the other side of life. It's dangerous. From Chris Bajalian, we've got The Princess of Las Vegas. The princess is fake and the murders are real. Chrissy Dowling passes her days by the pool at a private cabana, and each evening she transforms into a princess, performing her musical cabaret inspired by the life of the late Diana Spencer. Some might find her strange or even delusional, an American speaking with a British accent, living and working in a casino that has become a dated trash heap. On top of that, Chrissy's daily diet working in a casino has been that of a dated trash. That has been. Wait a second. Hold on a second. Let me just go back here. Delusional American speaking with a British accent, living and working in a casino that has become a dated trash heap. On top of that, Chris's daily diet of Adderall and Valium leaves her more than a little tipsy. Her senator boyfriend has gone back to his wife, and her entire career rests on resembling a dead woman. Yet her fans see her for the gifted chameleon that she is. But when Chrissy's sister Betsy arrives in town with a new boyfriend and a teenage daughter, and when Richie Morley, the owner of the Buckingham Palace Casino, is savagely murdered, Chrissy's carefully constructed kingdom is coming down all around her. What a fun premise of a book. I mean, really, just what a fun premise of this whole thing happening. And I'm laughing about the dilapidated hotel at the casino. When many years ago, actually, at this point, BoucherCon was held out in Las Vegas, and we stayed at the Riviera Hotel. And one of my agent friends was so funny when we got there because we knew it was like really run down. And she says to me, "I'm just telling you, I just took all the stuff off the bedding and I threw it in the closet, and I'm not ever taking my slippers off in this room." And we had, we're touring around, and we were, at all the different hotels, and we went to the hotel that has the canal, the water canal where people can sail down. I'm trying to remember which one it is. Well, anyway, we go over there and it's a much nicer experience. So we say to the owners, the people who are running BoucherCon, like, why didn't we stay here? And they said, because it would have been $20 more a night. And the two of us looked at each other and we all but wanted to have a fundraiser for the next time so we could stay at a place that was a lot nicer than the Riviera, where, believe me, it was scary. There was like these red velvet things that were terrifying in the room. It was very funny. So when I see something happening in Vegas, I always think about it. Next, we've got from Heather Gudenkopf, Everyone is Watching. I loved her last book, The Overnight Guest. Here we've got best friend, the confidant, the senator, the boyfriend, the executive. 5 contestants have been chosen to compete for $10 million on the game show, One Lucky Winner. The catch, none of them knows what or who to expect, and it'll be live streamed all over the world. Completely secluded in a state in Northern California with strict instructions not to leave the property and zero contact with the outside world, the competitors start to feel a little too isolated. When long-kept secrets begin to rise to the surface, the contestants realize this is no longer just a reality show. Someone's out for blood, and the game can't end until the world knows who the contestants really are. So everyone's watching. And those 5 people are the people that are out there being watched. Next, from Lisa Scottolini, we've got the truth about the Devlins. Here we go. TJ Devlin is the charming disappointment in the promising Devlin family, all of whom are lawyers at their highly successful firm, except him. After a stint in prison and rehab for alcoholism, TJ can't get hired anywhere except at the firm in a make-work job at the title of investigator. But one night, TJ's world turns upside down after his older brother, John, confesses that he murdered one of their clients, an accountant he confronted with a proof of embezzlement. It seems impossible coming from John because he is the firstborn and the most valued Devlin. TJ plunges into the investigation, seizing the chance to prove his worth finally to the family and save his brother. But in no time, TJ and John find themselves entangled in a lethal web of deception and murder. TJ is going to fight to serve his family, but what he really learns might break them first. So there's the son that is definitely the disappointment, who's the one that's supposed to save the family, and the ripping truth about the Devlins. Next, we've got What Happened to Nina by Dervla McTiernan. It's coming on March 26th. There's a new date for this. If anybody who had this book thinking they were coming out earlier, it was moved a couple of weeks yesterday. Nina and Simon are the perfect couple until they leave for a weekend at his family's cabin in Vermont, and only Simon comes home. His explanation of what happened in their last hours together doesn't add up. Nina's parents push the police for answers, and Simon's parents rush to protect him. They hire expensive lawyers and a PR firm that quickly ramps up a vicious, nothing is off limits media campaign. Everyone chooses a side, and the story goes viral, viewed by armchair investigators and wild conspiracy theories, and illustrated with pretty pictures taken from Nina's social media accounts. Nina's family's under siege, but they never lose sight of the one thing that really matters: finding their daughter. So what happened to Nina? What Happened to Nina is one of the books that we're giving away to in our book club. Book contest just ended at noon today, where one person is winning 6 books that we're really excited about that are coming out this spring. So we love doing contests like that. We've got a couple of new ones coming up our sleeve. So let's go to some notable paperback releases. We've got Just the Nicest Couple coming from Mary Kubica, The Lost English Girl from Julia Kelly, Reef Road from Deborah Royce Goodrich Royce, Where the Dead Sleep by Joshua Moling, Course by Geraldine Brooks, All Stars by Nana Kwame Adni. I'm bad with this name, I'm sorry. Chain Gang All Stars is the name of the book. Symphony of Secrets from Brendan Slocum, Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun from El Cosimano, Lisa Scottolini's Loyalty, terrific historic thriller, and Salman Rushdie's Victory City. So there you've got great books coming out in paperback for those who are waiting for paperback to either read themselves or read with their book groups. These are recent Book Reporter talks to in interviews that I've done. The Other Mothers with Catherine Faulkner, The Mystery Guest with Nita Prose, The Spectacular with Fiona Davis, Manor House with Gilly McMillan, and the series case of Rudolph Diesel with Douglas Brunt. All were terrific, really fun to talk to. Be adding people to this. I'm going to try and do one a week in the weeks coming up. So next will be Amanda Peters, and after that will be Ashley Elston talking about Sly Wins. So our contest is ending on Friday, where you can win all 44 of my bets on titles. I cannot wait until we select a winner because I have 3 copies of all 44 bets on titles in the room next door in 5 boxes. I'd like to stop walking around those boxes to do things. Really enjoyed reading these books. I'm looking forward to sharing them with readers. One person's going to win everything. 11 other people will each win 4. And we're going to try and match up with the the genres that people are interested in. And if you win and it's not a book you love, just think you can give it as a gift. You got it as a gift. How's that? Next, join us for our next Bookaccino live event. We are very excited that Lisa C. is going to be joining us to talk about Lady Tan's Circle of Women on Wednesday, January 24th at 8 p.m. Lisa, as you know, is a fabulous person at speaking with book clubs. Even if your book club has already, shared a conversation with her, jump on and do this, because we just feel that it's going to be a wonderful evening. This book was one of my top 3 favorite books of 2023. And where she explores this book. If you haven't had a chance to read it, you got a couple of weeks and you'll be fine. You definitely will have enough time. Here's a great reading. And our next Bookaccino Live preview event, we'll be talking about books from February 13th through March 5th and peek ahead at April. Will be on Wednesday, February 14th. Yes, you all will be our Valentines at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I don't promise roses, but I promise lots of good books. Sign up is going to be available on Bookreporter and Reading Group guides. Anybody who's attending the event live today, you will automatically get a link to sign up for this next book club when we do our follow-up with you. Anybody attending live will get a copy of this video, as well as the books that we discussed today. And we thank everybody for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.